As the old saying tells us, a picture can be worth 1,000 words. People find a speaker's message more interesting, grasp it more easily, and retain it longer when it's presented visually as well as verbally. When used properly, visual aids can make the difference between an ordinary speech and one that is truly memorable. The key words here are, when used properly.
Here's an example of pointillism. Georges Seurat's Sunday afternoon on the island of the Grand Jatte. Now, it might be a little hard to see, but you can actually see there's men, women, and children relaxing in a pond by a Paris suburb. Now, you can get a better idea of Seurat's technique with this close-up. I don't know if it's big enough, but if I pass it around, you could see how the child's face and hat are made up of entirely different colors, which is one of the reasons why the painting is so famous.
A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but only if you can see it. Compare the clip we just saw from the preliminary version of a speech about different techniques of painting with the final version of the same speech.
Pointillism is an artistic technique in which small dots or points of color work together to create a whole image. It thrived during the 1880s and 1890s and is best known today because of the French artist Georges Seurat. Seurat's most famous work is titled Sunday Afternoon on the Island of the Grand Jatte. I'm sure a lot of you have seen photographs of this painting. From a distance, it shows men, women, and children relaxing by a pond in a Paris suburb. But look what happens when we take a closer look. Now, when we focus on the mother and child, you begin to see the details of Seurat's technique. You can see even more if we move in closer on the child. Notice how the child's face and hat are actually the result of different dots of color, some lighter, some darker. As viewers, we put the dots together in our minds to create the whole image.
Not only can you see the pictures, but the speaker explains them clearly and concisely. If you follow the guidelines presented in The Art of Public Speaking, you'll be able to use visual aids just as effectively in your speeches. The guidelines for preparing visual aids include: prepare visual aids in advance, keep visual aids simple and uncluttered, make sure visual aids are large enough, use fonts that are easy to read, use a limited number of fonts, and use color effectively. The guidelines for presenting visual aids include: display visual aids where listeners can see them, avoid passing visual aids among the audience, display visual aids only while discussing them, talk to your audience, not to your visual aid, explain visual aids clearly and concisely, and be sure to practice with your visual aids when you rehearse the speech. In the excerpts from student speeches that follow, you'll see examples of strong and weak visual aids. As you watch, think how you can use visual aids effectively in your speeches. Let's start with an informative speech titled The Ups and Downs of Skyscrapers.
When we look at the 5 tallest buildings in the world, you may be surprised to see that only one of them comes from the United States. What are those buildings? In 5th place, at 1,362 feet, is the Two International Finance Center in Hong Kong. Also in China, and holding the 4th spot, is Shanghai's spectacular Jin Mao Building, which rises 1,380 feet. At 1,450 feet, Chicago's Sears Tower is the world's 3rd tallest building, and the only U.S. structure in the top 5. 2nd place is held by the Petronas Twin Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, each at 1,483 feet. You may remember seeing these in the Sean Connery film Entrapment. And the world's tallest building, at least for the moment, is the Taipei 101 Tower at 1,670 feet, which was completed in 2004. I say for the moment because plans are already underway for taller buildings, proving once again that the urge to reach for the sky seems to be a basic part of the human condition.
This is a creative visual aid, and it helps the speaker communicate his ideas better than he could have by words alone. Here's another visual aid that achieves the same objective. Notice how the speaker maintains eye contact with her audience and presents her aids in perfect coordination with her words.
No matter how one looks at the evidence, it all leads to one fact. there are too many motor vehicle accidents, deaths, and injuries involving teenage drivers. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, while teenagers make up 7% of the nation's licensed drivers, they represent 14% of all motor vehicle fatalities. The NHTSA reports that last year, 3,657 drivers aged 16 to 20 were killed in automobile accidents. In addition to killing the drivers, these same accidents took the lives of 2,384 teenage passengers. But these accidents didn't affect teenagers alone. They also took the lives of 2,625 people aged 21 or older. So the total number of people killed last year in automobile accidents involving teenage drivers was 8,666, almost exactly the number of full-time students at this campus.
As in this case, visual aids can be extremely effective for presenting statistics and other kinds of information, but only if the aid is carefully prepared in advance and is clearly explained to the audience. This is true whether you're using PowerPoint, poster board, or overhead transparencies. What happens if the aid is not properly prepared and explained? Here are two clips from a speech about the role of immigration in American history. The first shows a poorly designed visual aid, which looks as if it were thrown together at the last minute.
And now I want to show you my chart. These are different, these are where different U.S. immigrants come from. And you can see that they're from all over the place. We have Asia, Mexico, Caribbean, South America. I mean, you could read it, other. And all the different percentages, they're different. Yeah, we have 36 and 10 and all the way to 4. I guess I should move to my next point.
Now look at the final version of the same speech. In this version, the speaker's chart is clearly explained, is printed on heavyweight poster board, and is easy to read, even from the back of the room.
As you can see from this chart, which is based on the figures of the U.S. Census Bureau, 36%, more than 1/3 of recent U.S. immigrants have come from Asia. 14% have come from Mexico, and 11% have originated from Europe and the Caribbean, respectively. The next three groups consist of almost 1/4 of the total. South America with 10%, Africa with 9%, and Central America with 5%. An additional 4% come from other parts of the world.
Another thing you may have noticed in this clip is how the speaker uncovers the chart just before she discusses it, and then covers it up again as soon as she's finished. This is one of the most important rules in using visual aids. Display the aid only while you're discussing it. Otherwise, the audience will be looking at the aid rather than listening to you. There's one other kind of visual aid you can use, your own body, as in the following informative speech about yoga. As you watch, notice how well the speaker explains her ideas as she demonstrates them. This takes a lot of practice, but it makes for a great speech.
The second pose I'm going to do is the triangle bow pose. You start with your feet a little bit wider than your shoulders. You then take your arms straight out across your body with your palms facing down. You then touch your left hand to the floor while the opposite arm stretches towards the ceiling. You then take your head and gaze up towards the ceiling. This pose helps with your blood circulation and it stretches your torso and your neck. The third and final pose I'm going to do today is the King of the Dance pose. You take your right foot into your right hand and extend your left arm forward. And as you raise your left arm, you raise your right leg as high as possible. You hold this pose also for 30 seconds to a minute. Not only does this pose help greatly with balance, but it also stretches out your hips, your legs, and your torso.
When it comes to visual aids, then, you have many options. You can show photographs, drawings, or objects. You can present charts and graphs. You can use PowerPoint or poster board. You can even use your own body as a visual aid. But no matter which option you choose, if you follow the principles explained in The Art of Public Speaking and illustrated on this video, you'll be able to use visual aids in your speeches smoothly and expertly.